So thanks everyone for joining today's session on data security and compliance within RDS instances. We're joined today by Ran Rosen of Imperva, who are leaders of the cybersecurity space. There is a Q&A feature in Zoom which you can use to ask questions throughout the presentation. They may be answered at the end, depending on how many come through. I'll also mention that we are recording today's session and we'll be posting it online along with the presentation slides. So last month we didn't exactly have all the features within Zoom down packed. So I'm going to start off just with a quick poll just to make sure it's working. So okay, what is your current role at the moment? So I'll give it another 10 seconds. Still a few coming through. Great, so it looks like there's a fair mix, which is good to see. And I'll just share the results with everyone so you can see. Perfect. So last month we randomly chose one attendee that gave their feedback and to win a $100 Amazon gift card. So the winner for last month was Stephen Chase. I'm not sure if you're online right now, Stephen, but we will be sending an email out afterwards with the gift card later today. We will be doing the same thing this month. So if you didn't get a chance to submit last month, go ahead and follow the link at the bottom of the page, which we will be posting after the webinar. If you haven't been able to check out our LinkedIn recently, we are hiring at the moment. So we're looking for eager cloud engineers looking to deliver the highest quality solution to our customers. So if you want to head over to our LinkedIn and submit your interest, that'd be great. A recent announcement from AWS that came in just a couple of days ago got me a little bit excited personally. And that is that the AWS Systems Manager Explorer now provides a multi-account summary of trusted advisor checks. And this gives you better visibility into cost savings, improved performance and reliability, and close security gaps. Now, not sure about the rest of you, but I'm definitely in and out of Trusted Advisor a whole lot. And when a customer has, say, up to 10 accounts, this can be a huge nightmare. So I'm pretty excited about this. You get a view of all the different accounts. So I think it's a great new feature from Amazon. If you want to read more, you can follow the link at the bottom, and also just to keep up with all the new updates from AWS. So I'll hand over now to Ran, who will be taking us through compliance and data security in RDS.
Okay, I'm now unmute myself. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, perfect.
Very good. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Good morning for me. Good afternoon for you. We're going to talk about cloud data security for the next 30 minutes. And here's the agenda for today that we'll go over. So I'll give you an introduction to Imperva. I'm product manager at Imperva, and I'll just give you a few sentences about Imperva and what we're doing. Then the main section, I'm going to go over cloud data security and our product to protect the managed databases in the cloud, and what it means, how we do it, and why we're doing it the way we're doing it. Then we're going to go to the actual product that in the cloud data security, I'll wave with my hands and say what we're doing and what are the problems. And in the product lab, I'll go in and actually show you how it works. And then we'll leave some time for Q&A. So feel free to ask any question during the session. At the end, I'll take answers at the end of the session. So let's start. So what is Imperva? Imperva is protecting your data and all paths to it. And the way we're doing it, we're looking at the whole stack from the outside to the insider threat, from the network to the application to microservice and to data. This is basically the different products that we have on the different way to the data. As you see, we actually have the WAF and the WAF gateway and RASP. And what we're going to talk about today is this section here, which is our CDS and cloud data security. We have data security for on-prem, but what we're going to talk about today is cloud data security and the challenges and how we're doing it. So this is a bit about Imperva. Let's talk about why managed databases in the cloud is different. And before we're doing it, let's run a kind of a short poll just to see that we'll have kind of a context to the audience. Jackson, can you fire the poll? Yes. So the first one is, do you use which database and services you're using or planning to use? Is it Amazon RDS, Amazon Aurora, Redshift, and so on? This is just going to give us a context to how many of you are using managed databases on AWS today. This is one. And next question is going to be how, just a second, it's new to me as
results with everyone, so we'll just go into poll 2 now.
Oh, okay, sorry, okay. So the next one is, no, it's the same. Oh, which AWS Amazon RDS database engine are you using or planning to use in a different, it's similar to what we asked before, but this is more of the type of the actual database of the RDS itself, if you're using RDS. I can tell you again, don't know about you, but what we see that the main two ones is MySQL and Postgres, and we do see quite a bit of Oracle as well. But we see less MariaDB and MS SQL on RDS, but it will be interesting kind of to see how it looks right now. Okay, so kind of similar to what I said before saying it. So it seems like we are saying the same thing. And then we have another question. Then I'm kind of waiting to the fall. So this question is how, basically, if you use compliance and what tools you use to do to perform your compliance. Again, compliance is most of the time to bigger and highly regulated companies. But when it comes to security, it's not just. And one of the point of CDS, our product in general, is really to make the entry ticket into compliance and security and not to be in the news much easier via our solution. Again, you'll see it when we're talking about it. I'll wait here for the answers. Okay, and this is what I thought, as I said. And I think that this is going to be the last question, Jackson. I believe so, if not. And if you use, what do you use for compliance and security? Again, homegrown cloud native services, third party. Again, we see when people move to the cloud, we'll see here a lot of people using homegrown that are based on cloud native services in a lot of ways. So using CloudTrail, CloudWatch on AWS, Detective, Macy, and so on in order to create some sort of a security and a compliance features to be able to get more visibility into the environment. Okay, so homegrown and cloud native services, and it makes sense that cloud native services will be used. And I think that, Jackson, this was the last question. Okay, so let's jump right into it, and I'm gonna look at the time here and see that we're okay with the time. So this is probably the slide that I spend the most time on it, and it's slide that this is why we chose to write a completely new software to deal with cloud. And we're looking at manage, and you saw from the poll, it's managed databases in the cloud. And what we see is that when people go from let's say a MySQL on an EC2 to a MySQL RDS, it's not just, oh, I have a new database with a managed database here and it's going to be easier. It's most of the time a shift in the way customer design software, deploy software, write software, everything is changing in the stack. And when we look at this, everything is changing. We'd like to see how it influences data security as a whole. So we found 3 drivers that are really, we believe, are the main drivers that makes it very, very different. So I'll start with microservices. This is, and you probably use, this is, if you write to the cloud in a cloud native way and you'd like to use the cloud for what it is, for the business agility and to drive agility, microservices is one of the key elements there. And when you go from monolith to microservices, 2 main things are the consequences. One is that you have more databases. Now, each microservices or few microservices have their own database. This gives you the scalability and the elasticity that you want without scaling all of the application every time, like you have in the monolith. And the other one is that you have more task-specific databases. So you have some microservices that will use a SQL database, and you have some microservices that will use like a DynamoDB or a NoSQL databases because it better fit their logic. So the outcome of microservices is more databases that need to be protected and more database variety. And now when you go to the right with automation and DevOps, now that you have tens, hundreds, or maybe thousands of databases of microservices, it's managing it manually is just not an option anymore. So DevOps become the king and everything need to be done via DevOps. And again, this means 2 things as well. One is that you would like a security tool that is modern and can fit within the CI/CD processes with modern API and very easy to use. And the other one is that once everything is DevOps and the deployment is DevOps, you have the speed of DevOps. Everything is much more fast-paced. And the cloud environment, as it should be, becoming much more dynamic. Today to write some function in Lambda and have an RDS in the backend is really, I don't need almost any resources. I don't need to plan to it too much. And this is really the agility of the cloud. This is what you build for, but it's create a very dynamic and fast-pacing environment. And the last and not least is elasticity. You build for elasticity, you assume elasticity when you go to the cloud. It's not always the case, but so you have several products. What you don't want is to have a product that is elastic, but then some security or other product that you need to plan for how much volume do I anticipate in order to control it. And of course, a lot of product goes scale up, but it's harder sometimes to do scale down. So elasticity is one. So those three items, we believe that make the cloud, the managed databases in the cloud different. So a managed database is like an indicator that you're going more of the cloud native, you're embracing the cloud native where you're saying, okay, I don't have to manage the OS, I don't have to manage the database layer, I'm gonna do it faster. And it means that most of the time it's not the lift and shift, and you're going through this process that quite a bit of the parts in the way that you design software is changing. So the next slide is more about when we looked at the problem. I'd like to share with you how we saw it, what are the challenges, and what we choose in order to address it. So first of all, we said, as I stated before, that we believe that managed databases, and we see Gartner said it's growing. Last year, it grew by 86% managed databases, and it's continued to grow. More and more companies are going to managed databases. The more you're going with, again, the cloud native approach, you'll go with the RDS, Dynamo, and so on, and of course in different clouds as well. So we focused on managed database, and we said managed databases need a different solution because you can't install any agent on them and so on. And this go to, okay, it's a big problem, we need to address it in a different way. How are we going to do it? We have our current product that work on the on-prem, and we have our WAF that is a proxy. We know proxy very, very well, and we decided here that it's not the right way to go. And it's not the right way to go from what we see. And again, it's a valid way of going there. One, it's really not cloud friendly. It's a single point of failure. The whole point of scalability here is a bit of an issue. and the others, and then you need to do some design architecture in order to move all the traffic via the proxy. And we didn't want something like this. We wanted something that is really low touch, something that is frictionless, something that has no performance on the database. And if something happens, it will not affect it will not block anything that goes to the database. So it's really no worries on the administrative side to edit. And this is why we decided to go on the logs. And this is what we do, and we'll go into the architecture. We said we'll go with logs, we'll harvest the logs. It's allow us to go to multi-cloud as well quite faster. And there are, when we live in the ecosystem, and again, you'll see it in some features that I'm showing, we know where we live. So we are aware to the environment of AWS. So we'll read the CloudTrail, the CloudWatch, and if you open Macie or you open GuardDuty and so on, we will read more and more of those logs and get a better visibility and better context to where we live and what we can add to the actual log of the audit log in order to give you better security. And the last portion that is, we believe that we're the only one today. If you know of any other, I'll be happy to know, to deliver it as a SaaS. Again, to deliver it in a modern way, no deployment. It really take few minutes to 2 minutes basically to onboard and do your everything. And so SaaS is a key component of the way that we deliver our solution. So this is kind of going of what is the problem, what we see the drivers, and I'm taking you through our line of thinking, and then how we thought about the solution and how a solution might look like, and what are the guiding rules when we looked at it in order to deliver the solution. And this is about how the solution, and now looking at what we said before, we have basically 4 pillars of how the solution works. And again, I'm gonna go into the product and gonna show you each one of those pillars, how we actually implemented it. So the first is discovery. When we onboard to a cloud account or several cloud accounts in AWS, we query the AWS config all the time, and we get a state of what is how many RDSs you have. And again, if there are more databases like Mongo and Redshift that we're going to support, we'll show them as well. And this is happening on an ongoing basis. Remember that I said about the dynamic environment. We believe that compliance and security should be by default, almost out of the box, and you can sit and not be surprised by someone spinning up a database, sending some sensitive information, and you're even not aware of it. So discovery is happening on an ongoing basis. If it's 1 database or 10,000 databases, it will take the same time and you'll get visibility to it. And again, in an ongoing fashion. Then when we start to monitor data, and when I say monitor data, what we do is we, in the onboarding process, we get a cross-account role where we have permissions, a read permission into the environment, specific read permissions. And one of them is the API of the RDS logs. And we read the log on an ongoing basis, near real time. And once we take the log, we look at it and we do classification, not by querying the database itself. This is a patent pending that we have. We don't need keys to your database. What we do here is we look at the data, we look at the logs and see where sensitive data resides. And again, you'll see it. And this is, again, on an ongoing basis. So every time, we see events, we basically do the classification on an ongoing basis. Audit and policies, this is something, it's the meat of audit where you can set, and I'll show reports of, for auditor, if I would like to see all of my failed login, I would like to see all of my DDL operation, specific user doing some operation and so on. And insight is our machine learning and AI algorithms that we are taking our know-how, and it's not that we just find anomalies and tell you, oh, we found an anomaly, we feel that there is too many alerts today. What we do is we're looking for specific risk items. We look at the baseline, and again, if it has machine learning, we know how it varies from the baseline, and if it with enough of a threshold to tell you if this is pose a risk. And I'll show you something that will automatically detect a brute force into the database where you don't have to do anything. And we basically tell you, hey, we found this and this is what happened in regard to brute force, and I'll go and show it to you in the demo itself. Before going into the demo, I wanted to show you the kind of a very high level architecture here. On the right-hand side, you see the SaaS environment. On the left-hand side is the customer environment. When we do onboarding, this is where we get a cross-account role, and then we can query the metadata of your RDSs. Again, we never have access to the actual data. This is important. And we show you here in real time how many databases you have at any given point in time. Right now, we do an interval of 15 minutes because we think it's good enough, but we can make it more often. Once we start to monitor the data, basically collecting the logs, it's go through our pipeline here. We use Kafka as a pipeline, and we have different services. Enrichment, we enrich the data, we normalize the data. So reports from a MySQL database and an Oracle database will be the same. You don't have to go between one to another. We do our ML and AI policy matching for security and so on. And the data that is for audit, which is more sensitive type of data, we store it back in your S3 environment. So we don't keep it for longer time that we need to. All the other data is anonymized and masked, so we don't have the string literals. We don't keep any sensitive information, and all sensitive information that we saw in the logs will go back to S3 in the form of a report that you define. So it's in your S3 environment. And again, we're trying to not reinvent the wheel, using as many AWS services as we can to deliver security feature faster. So for example, this is why I use S3 and not our own storage. To run the report, we use Athena on S3, and you'll see, and we're using more and more AWS tools in order to again, be more integrated within your system, and at the same time, allow us to develop and be more agile. Because this is really, as I talked about companies that move into cloud native, this is cloud native. We have tens of microservices. We have quite a bit. We have right now something like 12 RDSs, and it's growing about a day. So we are a cloud native solution, and we're utilizing the cloud services as much as we can, like most of you or and other customers that you have. So let me now go into the to the demo. Even in the slide, it says demo. Oh, so here my session died before I started it. So let me go here into my account, and give me a second here. I'll go to CDS demo, cloud data security, and and this is how I get into my demo account. So this is CDS. This is the demo account, and we'll automatically see here some data showing up. And you can see that I have here 114 databases. Let's start from the beginning. I didn't think that a video will show well here because I saw some delays, but and Jackson, I'll share with you later that you can share with the group. There is on YouTube a 1-minute movie of how to onboard a cloud account. And I think it will be easier. But the first thing that you're doing as a customer, you're going into here, you add an account, and it's literally there is the automated way of you give a name, you give your account ID, the AWS account ID, click OK. What is going on? We open AWS on the other side, on another tab. We, with CloudFormation and some Lambda, create a cross-account role that we need. You see the stack that we're creating, you click OK, and then there is a callback function to us. When it's done, you have a green checkbox here and everything is good to go. Again, the outcome of this is a cross-account role. And you can do it manually if you want. We give you the CloudFormation even. A lot of our customers convert it to Terraform, and we are about to do it as well. And they have a cross-account role when we can use. Once we have the cross-account role, we can do all of our magic. And so the discovery, remember we had 4 pillars. So let's go through them. I can see here all of the databases, even if I don't monitor them, even if they were deleted, if I was starting. We query the AWS config, as I said, and we can see there was a database here. This was the database. Someone deleted it. I can delete it from here as well, but at least I have visibility that it was up and deleted. And what we see here is the account. As you saw, I can have more than one account. Most of our customers do add more than one account. The actual database name, the type of the database, the state of the database, and if it's encrypted or not. This is the first discovery that is being done without pulling any data. The databases that I would like to monitor, and let's filter here on the database that we monitor, those are the databases that, if you remember in the architecture, we start to read the API, from the API the logs, and we start to analyze those. So let's take this Oracle database that we are really starting to read the logs. And you can see it's automatically say here, hey, we found sensitive data in this database. I didn't have to do anything in order to see it. And it tells me some more information of how many sensitive data. Let's look into it. And remember that we don't query the actual database. Now I drill down and I can see a bit more information of the VPC, the region, the version of the database. And here I see the sensitive data. So the system tell me we have identified 225 columns, and you can see I have the schema, the table, and the column with actual sensitive information. And here is the category of what type of sensitive information we found. Our algorithm is based on data and column name as well. So it's not just column name or just the data that we see. And we have to see enough data to be sent to mark it as sensitive. If not, we have possible sensitive. This is where we see some data. We say, we believe there is sensitive data here. We're not sure. The more data that will flow in, it will either go to sensitive or to unclassified. At any given point in time, I can go and mark something as sensitive or non-sensitive and override the algorithm. And as I said, this is on an ongoing basis. So if I have a new database and information started to flow, we will see the sensitive information here, and it really takes seconds. You see it on the fly. And if I have an old database and I have, like it happened to me, a comment or a column database with comment that shouldn't be any PII there, and some developer came a bit later and started to add some PII information to it, it will change to be sensitive. So this is on an ongoing basis. It's not just a snapshot in time. So this is about the discovery and classification. Those are the two pillars that we talked about. And here I just can drill down to any of those functions. So here the discovery, and here it basically tell me how many sensitive out of the databases that I have. And again, this is without doing anything. I'll go to the last pillar, and then I'll go to reporting and policy, because again, this is something that I don't have to do anything in order to get value. Remember, I just onboarded, and what I see here, this is happening something after a week where we create a baseline and we're learning the behavior of each database. We start to find some incidents, we call it. The interesting incident that I've talked about before is the brute force, and let me show it to you. So the last one happened 2 days ago. I see multiple consecutive failed logins to a database. And we can see here that it clustered events, 48 events that happened on a span of a minute, that root DB user tried to connect and it failed to connect. So we're able to cluster it and tell you, hey, there is a brute force, and we give you the information that we have from the logs about the database name, the database type, the source host, and so on. So you can go and try see who did what and if it's a risk or just a mistake. So this is one. We're adding more and more features and more algorithm into the to the AI and machine learning. We do have a product on the on-prem called DRA that is doing it for several years now. So we know how to do it. A lot of it is a matter of converting our algorithm to work in a stream mode and not in a batch mode to better fit the cloud. And the other one is we do see specific cloud-specific threats that are coming. One of the features that we're working on is protecting the DB snapshot. A lot of the time, DB snapshots are kind of overlooked. It happens automatically, but they have sensitive data. And there are quite a bit of breaches that people go to the snapshot and no one is really looking at them. And remember that a lot of the times it's in 35%, the breaches are from internal threats. And I just saw that GoDaddy yesterday had exactly the same thing, that an ex-employee that just still had some privileges with an SSH got in and took some data. So this is something that a lot of the time you have to look for internal threats as well, and not just the SQLi and backdoor and those type of threats. Other feature that we have here is if we see a new activity on a database, we'll alert on it. If we see a new user that never touched this database, we'll alert on it. Those are more on the minors level because it can be okay. Most of the time it's okay, but would like to give you some visibility and know about it. And you see here, new action by user on a database. So we tell you, hey, this is a user, we've never seen him before, and he's performing those operations on this database. Again, we didn't see
Ran, there's a couple of questions there if you wanted to kind of pause and just answer a couple.
Yes, absolutely.
That's easy.
Very good. So I will answer it live. So what kind of access do you have on the DBs? On the DB itself, so we have several access. We have access to the AWS config, that it's not just the DB, but this is to query where the RDS, the state, and the changes of it. And we have access to the logs. There is when you have to do two things. One, to enable the audit logs on the database, the native audit. But we don't query, but in RDS, there is an API for the logs. So they're not just saved in a big bucket in the environment. There depends on the different database. Sometimes it's maxed to a 1 mega per file, and it's written to several files in parallel. We are querying with the RDS API logs, and this is the permission that we ask for the database. This is the only permission. We don't have any permission to the actual database. We don't have keys to the database, and we can't, and I didn't touch it. This is why we don't have a performance hit, because we really don't touch the actual database. We only look at the logs that are being written to the API. So this is one. The other one is, when is Google Cloud integration likely to be available? Good question. In the next 12 months, we'll have Azure and GCP. We are, again, the nature of SaaS is here, we're trying to develop really, really fast and see where the market needs and our customer needs are, and see that we're developing what customer want. We're debating between GCP and Azure. One will be this year and the other will be in the beginning of next year. Right now, as it looks like, we started with thinking about GCP. It seems like Azure might be the first cloud to support, and then GCP, but again, we haven't made the decision. And we do hope that once we do the first one, the second one will be much easier. And again, this is one of the reasons that we chose logs. We looked at it most, GCP, when we looked at BigQuery and SpannerDB, we have something similar to CloudTrail, where it's relatively easy to onboard those. So in the next 12 months, we'll have both. I don't have a specific date for it. How long do you retain? So let me see, how long do you retain customer database logs? So we do not retain the logs. If you saw in the architecture, we saved it into the customer S3 bucket. So when we onboard, we do two things. We get under the cross account role, there is some read permission to the AWS config, to the RDS API logs. And then we create an S3 bucket with only a write permission in the customer environment. And this is where we write the logs and the reports. I'll show it in a second. And we don't save them. So it goes through our pipeline, less than around 2-3 hours. This is kind of the time that it's there. It's encrypted in transit and at rest all the time. So our Kafka is encrypted, of course, it's over TLS, and even between our microservices in our environment, everything is encrypted. If you, another question here, and I would like to go to the demo and answer most of it later. So another question here is, if you don't access the DB, how do you know the kind of data in there? It's a good question. So we look at the log. So if you think about it, the log will have update, credit card field, equals, This one, we see it, any update, any insert, and then even every select. So we see the database column, and most of the time, the column names say quite a bit about the data inside. If the column name is first name, most of the time first name will be there, although we do create our algorithm to look at data and column name. And this is how we do it with looking at the logs and not querying the actual database. And we see really, really good result with doing so. Very good. So let me go back to the demo here, and feel free to ask more questions and I'll answer them at the end. So I touched about discovery. Remember, I had 4 pillars. I had discovery, I had classification, I had machine learning and AI, and the last one is reports and audit, which is really the meat of securities. Everything I did till now is collecting the data, normalizing the data, showing you the data, but what do I do with the data? So let's go to reports. Reports in most cases are for the auditing purposes when you have an auditor, and he said for PCI, for HIPAA, for GDPR, I need to see those type of things. I can go to add a report. I can choose from, 12 different predefined reports that we know that are the most used, that we need for the different auditing. I can tell that we're working in 3 weeks. We'll have tags that will show you, oh, this is PCI, this is this in general. We have the tags like in AWS to every asset, so everything can work with tags. I'm a great believer in it. Some of it don't require you for any information. DDL operation, we know what DDLs are, and we'll create a report with DDL operation on all the databases that you have. And some do require some information on your end. For example, non-DBA performing a privilege operation, I have to say who are my non-DBA users, and we will create a report monitoring those doing privilege operation. Again, we know what privilege operations are. If it's alter, drop, create, and so on, this is something that we update, and we have DBAs on board that update what we call privilege operation, if they're touching system objects, and so on. This is the know-how that we bring to the table. When I go to reports, remember that and there was a question now, the reports are not saved on our end. So if I'll go to DDL, you will see that I have here a report. It can be scheduled, and most customers do it. They're scheduling it's either a daily or a weekly report. And as you can see here, the reports are saved in the customer S3 bucket. The actual system CDS don't have access to it. We save the link after running the Athena. And once you click on this, it will take you to your S3 bucket to show your, I clicked on something. Just a second. Yeah, sorry. To show you the actual files. It's a CSV with all the fields that you need for this report if it's a DDL. And again, you can see other reports. If it didn't work correctly because of permission, we'll basically tell you what the reason, and most of the time it's permissions that it didn't run successfully. But then you have kind of a peace of mind. I'm just looking at the time to see that I'm okay. Peace of mind that everything is running. And you can go to your S3 bucket and look at it from there. You don't have to go from here, but this is just an easier way of doing it. Those are the reports. The policy is a bit more interesting. This is for some auditing as well, but this is more security related as well. You can create a report. We have different type of reports. I would like to look at specific accounts and what they're doing, because I know that I have some DPAs, I know the safety user. I want to know everything that they're doing, and I want almost in near real time to get an alert about what they're doing, because it might go to a different system, to incident response or something that I'd like to know about and not just as a report. Sometime I want to deactivate user that I know that shouldn't be in the system. I would like to flag them immediately. Unauthorized DBA read, and we'll look at it, an unauthorized source IP. And in a week or so, you'll be able here to create what you call dynamic policy, which is basically what we have here is an IFTT, if this then that mechanism, and you'll create your own mix and match between the features like events, users, tables, and so on, to create the actual report, the policy. So if I'll go back here and I'll go into one of the activated one. So here I said, you know, I know that they have a table called treatment, and this is very simple, but this is how people using it. And I know that they have an admin user. Admin never, ever should go into treatments. And if it goes into treatments table, I should know about it as fast as I can, because he shouldn't. And I can have, of course, here a list of more than one, and here a list of more than one. And there is a logic of in list and not in list, as I can see here. So I blacklist or whitelist. And then the question is, okay, when I know about it, what happens? Two things are happening. One, I'll show you in a second. There is a policy alert where we populate all the alerts to one screen. But the other one is, being cloud native, we tell you, give us an SNS topic, and we'll write everything to the SNS topic, which makes us a completely open platform, which basically create a webhook to this event. You can subscribe a simple email, or you can write a Lambda function that does quite more. It can go into a SIEM, it can go into a ticketing system, or it can be, you know, you can write something, go into Slack, or any information that you would like in order to do it. So this is the policies. And when you look at the policy alerts, I'm just looking. If you look at the policy alerts, you can see the alert that were created. Those are the name of the alert, and you can see on the right-hand side the information that we bring to the alert. This is where you can say, okay, it's important, it's not important, I want to continue investigating it. And as you can see, when I go through here, I see the different queries that have done. We don't save this information. So all the string literal is not something that, that we're saving. So it's not that we're masking it here. We don't save it, we throw it away. We're really sensitive to sensitive information. So only in the logs and in your S3 bucket is where we save the actual information, because you need it. But in our system, once we don't need it, it's completely thrown away. We have some, and I'm about to be done, service alarms, which is something that happens outside of the environment that don't allow us to do our work. One of it, if someone went to AWS and stopped the native log. So this is where we cannot do our job, but we'll tell you, hey, there is a service alarm. This is something you need to know about it. Someone stopped the logging. It's good reason or not good reason, you should know, but we alert you on this so we cannot do our job. And really the last portion here is talking about security and compliance by default. If all of those are checked, this means that now if I set the policies, I set reporting, any database that is spun up automatically detected, automatically monitored, automatically going to be classified. The reports and policies that you saw automatically going to be applied to it. So no one will be able to surprise me as a security engineer of a new database that sends some information. And again, we see more and more when now we have a SaaS solution that is very easy to deploy, that not just the highly regulated, but really just customer that companies that don't want to be in the news with a data breach, not knowing about it. I don't know, if I'm not mistaken, most companies detect, if they detect data breach around after 256 days. This is kind of the average. It's hard to know, especially if it's an internal user that takes something or it's a low and slow attack. And those are the tools that really give you visibility to see if something went wrong or not, even if you don't have an auditor that come to visit you every 6 months. Let's go back to the slide. Jackson, I think we're good in time. Let me know. Okay, give me a thumbs up.
Let's just hit 30 minutes. So if we can get into the Q&A shortly, that'll be good.
Yep. So one slide from the Q&A, I believe, and we'll go into the Q&A. One last thing. So we are advanced partner of AWS, which basically means that you can buy our product on the marketplace. We have the Security Competence ISV Accelerator Program. There are different, you can use your EDP if you have an EDP on AWS with private offers to buy our product. We work very closely with AWS on the development and on the field and sales and marketing side. We're working on webinars together. So it really fits, going within RDS and going in a secure way. And then this is across all of our products on the WAF and on the database side as well. And this is very level, just summarize everything, more of a salesy one, and I'm not going to go into it, but really the main thing is you onboard in minute. It's really instance time to value as you saw it. Compliance by default, as I said, and we leave you to innovate with your data, do whatever you want. And in really we had POVs of less than 30 minutes that the customer is up and running, compliance check, and it has security and visibility that he didn't have before. Just looking a bit ahead about our roadmap. So we're now working on Redshift. And again, we're aligning our roadmap to customer needs. So we saw on AWS that Redshift is probably the most popular one that people are asking. S3 is a big subject, but what we see a lot of BI teams within companies use S3 as a data lake and use Athena to query the database. And it's a wild west there. No one knows if it's sensitive data, not sensitive data. They're copying information here and there. So basically looking Athena and S3 is the database and Athena is the query engine. And we have good visibility to it because it's basically a SQL logging there. DynamoDB and MS SQL, different clouds, GCP and Azure, not by this order, as I said, but those are, and management, we're just going to make it very, our point is to make it simple to use so that the security and compliance, that maybe it's not the most sexy compliance environment, to make it really simple and to go through it. So more different reports, tags across the environment, enhanced classification. Some customers want to put their own classification in it. Followed action that we did with SNS, and we're thinking about doing it with, it's not Event, I forgot the name, but there is a new tool of AWS, Event Hub, not Event Hub, yes, Event Hub, I believe, that it's more of like an SNS topic, but in a marketplace way where people can write their own consumers. Insights with our machine learning, I said that we have our on-prem product called DRA, Data Risk Analytics. We're porting more and more algorithm from there. DB snapshot, protecting those, looking at the data lineage of how sensitive data move across your account, and more cloud-specific threat. We're working with we have a research team at Imperva of roughly 20 people working on WAF and data, and we're always with a pulse on what's going on and looking at how we can innovate there and give you things that leveraging on what AWS and other cloud are doing and not duplicating those. And as I said, we're cloud aware. So we're looking into how to read guard duty, how to read the RDS enhanced logging. If you have Macy on S3 to use it for in the DB snapshot, it works really well. We're looking at Detective, although Detective still doesn't have an API, but what we are wearing to the ecosystem that we live in, and we'd like to leverage any tool that the underlying ecosystem gives us in order to give you better visibility, better security to your managed databases, and not redo what the cloud environment gives us. If you checked it, it doesn't need to, but if you have guard duty, we'd like to learn from it and see what's relevant to the RDS and elevate it to you. That's it, basically. I think that here I say thank you. Let's go to the Q&A. There is my email here. Feel free to contact me. If you want more information, go to imperva.com. You can have our overall portfolio. CDS is a very, very new product. We've been working it for quite a bit. We had a very long beta for roughly a year that we want to see that we got it right. It was released a month ago. We have a good number of customers and it's going very, very nicely. And I'll be happy to see more customers on it. So I'll go to the Q&A here. So we have more. So answer, can you forward force events to a SIEM? So the way that we decided to do it is with an SNS topic to create a Lambda that will send it into a SIEM. We created some Lambda that, and we are working, it's not there on a, and we have an open for Imperva and open GitHub, and we'll add to there some Lambda functions as a template. We have one just to send to an S3 bucket, and I do know that Splunk has a connector to S3, but it should be quite easy, and we might even develop it and put it on the GitHub of creating a Lambda, something that I want to do. I just don't have time. I'd like to play with it one weekend and write it into a SIM. And this is the way that we believe that it should be done. And this is why we did it with an SNS topic, basically giving a webhook to do whatever you want with it. So this is about this question. The next question, does it impact performance? Can I monitor more than one AWS account? So it doesn't impact performance. There is a performance hit sometimes. It depends on the database when you open the native logs. But again, either you put a proxy at something else, or you need to put the native logs. On the on-prem, we put an agent in the kernel itself. It's not an option here, not just for us, but it's not an option. No one has access to the OS level. And can I monitor more than one AWS account? Yes, most companies do have more than one account. There is unlimited number of accounts. I can tell that we tested more than 50, but again, it's unlimited. There shouldn't be an issue there. Let me answer the next one. What data leaves my environment with this solution? So as I said, we query the AWS config, so we get metadata on which databases you have going into our, again, over TLS, any type of information is encrypted at rest and in transit, wherever it goes. And the logs do leave your environment, but then we put them back in your S3 bucket, and we create a report in your S3 environment via Athena. We don't create the reports in our environment. And what we lived in our environment is the anonymized logs, where we throw all the string literals, and we pack them. So if we see the same select name and ID from a specific table, and then we see it more and more, so we don't save all of them. We basically pack what we call the tuples that are relevant to us for our machine learning and AI, in order to give you what you need. So we try to save as minimal information, and any information that is saved for more than 2 or 3 hours in our environment, it's in our environment, it's again, it's encrypted and then throw it away. So this is about this question. I don't think that I have more questions here.
So thanks a lot for that, Ran. It was a wonderful presentation. I can definitely think of a lot of customers as a managed service provider who would get a lot of benefit from this kind of visibility into their RDS. So big thanks for that. And also, if you do need to get into contact with Imperva for a further discussion, you can see their contact details in the comment section for the webinar, and you can also head over to their website if you get lost. Cool. So as previously mentioned, we will be posting this webinar session along with the slides online, and you can also view past meetups if you're ever getting bored in isolation. So I'd like to just finish off now with one last quick poll. And this is just to get feedback on the presentation today and whether we're pushing out content that you guys are loving. I would expect that if, I would expect if people do give low ratings, I would love you guys to reach out using the link we provided above and give feedback on what you'd like to see or what you'd like to see different. Great, so I'll just give it another 5 seconds. So good to see 80%, 90% of the group has loved it. So thanks a lot for the feedback, everyone. We'll be hosting again next month, and we'd love you guys to continue showing your support to our community. So we hope you can all keep safe and healthy during these times, and a huge thanks for everyone for coming along, and Imperva for sharing their new product with us today. So thanks everyone.
Thank you everyone, and thank you Jackson for inviting me. Thank you very much everyone.
Thanks, Aaron. Cheers.